Hey guys, good evening. Hey Nancy, how are you?
Good. How are you, Sloan?
I'm so bored. I've had absolutely
Yeah,
nothing to
really.
do.
Yeah, I hear your Twitter is really taking a nosedive.
Yeah, yeah, I'm getting a ratio big time.
Yeah, really.
Big time. So it is a big day. It's actually a big week. We know this. It's crossover week. And it's hard to explain if you're not in politics. And I would recommend never ever getting into politics if you can help it. This during this week, all the bills that had been filed, they have to make it through every single committee that they're supposed to make it through, and then have a floor either on the Senate side or the House side to be able to be voted on and talked about in session and cross over. Right. A lot of those bills will die. That's just what happens every single time. A lot of people will be unhappy. Remember how unhappy we were uh, 2 sessions ago in particular when parental rights bill. Oh, never mind. That's a fresh wound. That was last year. But yeah, so we're looking at Thursday. Thursday's the deadline. So I want to talk about two bills that everybody has been blowing us up about. Number one, it's the, as they call it, the drag show bill, but it's a whole lot of nothing. I'm going to put it up here right now. You'll get to see it. Okay, this is the House bill version, and this is sponsored by Zinger out of Forsyth County. Because as you remember this one, Nancy, in Forsyth County, this
Right.
grown
The
ass, grown
yeah.
ass man was rubbing his junk all up in a minor's face.
hmm
And well, we wouldn't need stupid bills if there weren't stupid people
Right.
causing stupid problems.
Exactly.
So this drag show bill, this version that you see here in the House, this has been tabled. Now we don't know why, we don't know what we have heard. I had to correct myself. We heard that two specific reps were behind tabling it. We're only hearing one now. We don't actually know, but here's the good news. The Senate has part of this. I'm going to put this up here, another one pager, and basically it's just enhancing felony penalties for obscenity, which will probably include the drag show. So what I'm hearing, Nancy, is that they're going to merge both of these bills. And again, is this a dumb bill? Yeah. It's a stupid bill. Is it needed? Clearly, we have the video evidence. Now, we have another problem. We have trans Republicans. We've talked about this a lot. Trans women, trans men. We got him here too, folks. Trans Republicans. We've got a guy named Jim O'Neill. You might recognize Jim O'Neill. I'll put his picture up now. He is the DA out of Forsyth. He refuses to prosecute the laws on the books. There's already a law for obscenities on the books that prevents this drag show stuff. He calls himself a Republican. He refuses to do it. We have constituents there, many of the people that we actually sponsored during the election, who are absolutely furious. They door knocked for Jim O'Neill. They worked their ass off to get him elected. And now I'm hearing that his phone call returns are kind of slow. Now, this is the same guy, Nancy, that sued Josh Stein. He's very high dudgeon because Josh Stein lied in a political commercial, allegedly.
Hmm.
Spent a lot of time on that,
Right.
grinding that axe.
Yep.
What what does that do for the people of North Carolina or Forsyth County? Here, this Republican has a chance to do something for his constituents who put him there.
Right. No, I agree. And we see this over and over again when push comes to shove and the actual everyday people are being affected by whatever nonsense is going on. And it's time for those who you would anticipate would step up to the problem to step up, and they just don't. And it's the same as if a Democrat were in the office or someone of the opposing, who wants this stuff to go on.
Well,
Same
you know
effect.
where Democrats are coming from. I mean, yeah, they lie. I get it. But these trans Republicans are really this is insidious. This is, malevolent stuff here. We can't allow it to continue. And Jim O'Neill, that is why you are you're one of my disappointments of the week. Maybe we should have a new feature.
Yeah, we should. That's a good one.
You know, we need the graphics, we need the sound effects. It's going to be
Yeah.
something wah wah.
Wah, wah. Yeah.
And hopefully we won't have to sound that very often. All right. So let's move on to this. Yesterday I did a thing.
Some would call it that.
Well, Nancy and I have been getting all this stuff out about ECU. Nancy's been on the forefront of UNC, ringing the bell about everything, and you've been busy bell ringing. DEI in the curriculum, them trying to trans children in the Department of Pediatrics.
Correct.
And so we have discovered that Duke is offering transgender care and treating transgender patients that are 2 years old. Okay. UNC is doing it at 3. Of course, ECU is doing it at 4 years old. Now, people have called us liars. This is all open source information. This is interviews with the doctors doing it. This is advertisements. This is intake forms. I mean, either they need to face sanctions for false advertising, or they're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing it.
Absolutely.
So in case you have been under a rock and you haven't read our story, which by the way, I'm offended. We reported this yesterday. The top medical schools in North Carolina, you know, the crown jewel, if you will, they are transing young children. The Duke Clinic opened in 2015. It's led by an activist, and she's just transing away. She's admitting, hey, these kids aren't old enough to consciously do that. They're just born that way. Wow. Okay. Whatever. Then we move on to ECU, and this dingbat, Dr. I guess, Colby Dindy, says, yeah, the literature says right around 4 kids have their gender identity. So we don't want to exclude anybody. We want that money, yo. We got to get that money. So they start transing them at 4 years old. Never mind that Finland, Sweden, UK, they've done it for a decade. It is a freaking disaster. And they're being sued by what, like 19,000 patients or something like that?
Yeah, there's several thousand in the UK. Part of it's a class action, I think, something like that. But yeah, there's several thousand lawsuits in the UK alone.
Yeah, for ruining lives. And then UNC, they actually, and I'm going to put up this slide. The slide says we start children on puberty blockers at 10 or 2, which is about 11 and a half years old. Mm-hmm. And you'll see this. They say we preserve their fertility. Now, I thought, Nancy, that puberty blockers didn't make you sterile.
Well, I think that isn't quite the case, because if you don't allow your puberty, you know, your hormones during puberty to develop, and you block them to a point where they can't develop, you're not 100% sure that it's going to return, let alone if you start being put on the opposite sex hormone. So yeah, I would say that you found that as a pretty important tell on their side.
Right. I mean, I didn't make the presentation. Nancy didn't make the presentation. They made the presentation. What you're looking at right here is this is this is 2022. So this is last year. They're educating the wider medical community on what they are up to in this clinic that opened in 2017. So look, this has been going on under our noses. Why didn't we know? Because this is so incredibly, insanely perverse. How could we ever have dreamed up something this effed up? I couldn't in my wildest dreams.
I don't know. I mean, I trained there. I finished training at UNC in general surgery in 2010. You know, the process of taking boards afterwards, you know, into 2011, 2012 or whatever. And none of that was there. So, and that was only what, 10, 12 years ago. And I could never dream of that. It wasn't in our textbooks, none of this stuff. So, yeah, it's really, really amazing. And the scary thing that we found too, Sloan, this week is that, you reported before on ECU and Dr. Denby, and how Dr. Denby is basically internal medicine physician, or they're trying to get it into the family practices, which is general medicine, for everyday type doctors like primary care physicians. Previously, we've been seeing this done by specialists in the field, like pediatric endocrinologists and that type of thing, people with advanced training in hormones and hormone dysregulation. And these folks don't have it. Well, now we're seeing that at UNC as well, where the family practice department is training their residents in hormone therapy to promote it in primary care, your clinic down the street, so they can put the whole family on hormones if they want to. And it's, to me, that's especially insane. That has no place in primary care as far as I'm concerned.
We need lawyers, and we need them now.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, now for the really bad part. Now I'm going to preface this by saying that Republicans are the only ones who can help us legally at this point. Okay. And they are the party, right, of wanting to stop all of these horrible things. So let's just preface it right there. All right. I'm not sitting here saying that, oh my God, these are terrible people. Some of these people need an adult in the room to tell them what's up. Here's what I mean. Here you guys have side by side these two bills. You see a lot of highlighting on one side and a lot of non-highlighting on the other. Let's go to the before. So we're going to go to the highlighted part. This bill, this Youth Protection Act, this is in the House today. This came through a House hearing today in the Health Committee. Health Committee has I might be a little off, but not by much. 35. It definitely has 35 members. 25 of those are Republican, and overwhelming majority are Republican. They had to water this bill so far down. It's not even fun. It's a shell of its former self. Here's what they did. This is a bill that acknowledges a lot, and this is important. It says, North Carolina, we have a competing interest to keep people safe. As a doctor, you get that. It says, take a wait and see approach to children who have gender dysphoria, let them develop. We have seen some in the medical community are aggressively pushing for interventions. Hell yeah, 2 years old. This treatment, and it just says a lot of great stuff about the puberty blockers. It's not FDA approved, and it's experimental. So the bill that was put out there by actual Republicans is freaking fantastic. It acknowledges these things, that it's unproven. So you see all of this in the preamble. Okay. You're going to see none of that in what got out of the committee today, but I'll explain that. Everything that you see here in the yellow has been removed. And the main things, Nancy, that I'm seeing is that it's removing medical professionals out of it. And mental health professionals and counselors out of it, and they're doing they are the salespeople. When you go to Best Buy, you got the friendly people in the blue shirts. That's these psychologists and social workers. They tell us that we need to have in all these schools. That's who they are. And so what they're doing is, I won't belabor the point here, but you see all the stuff in the yellow, that's all been removed. We have a shell. So it's in 3 buckets, Nancy. They're going to allow puberty blockers. They're going to allow cross-sex hormones. They're going to allow the salespeople to go into our schools, to exist in our schools, to brainwash children. Remember, the age of consent in North Carolina is 0. So any child can consent to their own mental health treatment. They removed the entire parental rights section of the bill, and they removed, the whistleblower protection, so that whistleblowers who have come forward, and they've come forward, they have no protection. So I believe Timothy Reeder of Pitt County, who is an ECU doctor, who was speaking about another bill that he was pushing right before this bill came up for a vote. I believe he stopped it. I believe Aaron Paré of Wake County has stopped it because she's worried she won't get reelected. Okay. And I believe that Kristen Baker stopped it. See, Kristen Baker is also a doctor. Tim Reeder is. And it just seems like an overwhelming majority of the bills that they both put up only protect doctors or only give money away, like Medicaid expansion. So that we have two doctors, Republican, in that health committee. They kept their mouths shut.
I agree. I think it's inexcusable as a physician myself. I mean, the fact that you're a physician and you're able to be politically active on the conservative side of these issues, and you're not saying that we need this, is really incredibly disappointing on my end. I mean, doctors, there's so many doctors who hate this stuff, who want nothing to do with it, who don't agree with the transgender, gender affirming ideology, which is what these universities are advertising, which is a specific highway, a specific mode of treatment that says if the kid decides that the kid is a different sex, then you have to go along with it. There's no questions or anything else. It's very antithetical to the whole do no harm concept. There are so many physicians who would be happy to speak out if they didn't fear for their jobs. And here we have two physicians on the health committee on the Republican side who aren't pushing for this bill as it was originally written and are silent and potentially even messed with it to gut it, to take out all of these parental protections.
Yeah. Hugh Blackwell said
it's
that.
Incredibly, yeah, my stomach hurts right now. It's awful.
Kristen Baker is a child psychiatrist. Who better to speak out? Timothy Reeder is a physician at ECU. Can you think of two better people to speak out on this bill? I believe they tried to kill it. Now, how do I know? Well, I've seen pattern in practice. I've seen, to this day, Timothy Reeder is denying the existence of these pediatric gender clinics at his own hospital. He's denying it to constituents. Hugh Blackwell got up today and talked about the bill, and he acknowledged, that Tim Reeder had, helped craft this bullshit, is what it is. So he said that, and we know that that's in keeping with what he did. And as far as Erin Pare, again, I mean, she's very fearful of taking a move. Now you may say, hey, both Erin Pare and Baker, they were on the Save Girls Sports Act. And by the way, I applaud them for that. We needed to do this. That was very important. There's a big difference here. Hospital and pharma money isn't attached to that bill.
That's a really good point, Sloan.
And it is attached to this bill. Our major teaching universities are not attached to that bill, and it is to this bill. And I'm pointing out the obvious. Republicans get a tremendous amount of money from the same donors who donate to UNC, ECU, and the alumni, as well as pharma and, the hospital association for sure. And we know Blue Cross Blue Shield. I mean, we know and understand that. And by the way, you have to have money to run an election. You got to have money. You got to have donors. That's important. But that's what I believe is going on. Okay. Also, I want to show you this. Quality NC. I was there today at the General Assembly. They were there out in force and raising hell, actually. And I had a new rep say to me, well, the opposition, Sloan, you ain't seen opposition, because guess what? These radicals, they're not in your territory. If you're listening to me, representatives, they're not in your district. You're not making bills for them. You're making bills for your constituents. They're not there. And what they expect you to do is your job. You don't get to expand Medicaid. You don't get to have a bill that puts advertisements for mental health in schools. You don't get to do that and turn your back on this bill. You don't get to do that. A lot of people say and are telling these reps, well, HB2, we lost the governorship because of that. You didn't lose the governorship because of that. You lost it because of this. People would rather vote for a real Democrat than a fake one any day of the week. That's what happened.
Exactly.
I'm so pissed off about this, guys. This is a no-brainer. 2, 3, and 4-year-old. And oh, by the way, if you're a Republican and you're listening to me right now and you're worried about taking a vote on this bill, can you imagine a mailer going out to your opponent saying that they wanted to trans 2, 3, and 4-year-olds? Because that's what this bill entails. That's who we're helping. It ain't 16 and 17-year-olds approaching the age of majority.
Nope. Nope. And how can these Republicans go and have their press conferences and be so proud now of having a new supermajority, bragging about that, having a majority on the health committee, having a couple doctors in their ranks, and they can't even get this through as originally written, with basic protections for parents, basic protections for young children who cannot make decisions about getting tattoos, but who can take life-changing hormones. They can't even do that. And they're bragging about a supermajority. I mean, give me a break.
I said this before and I'll say it again. Timothy Reeder from Pitt County ECU freshman rep. He is the most dangerous man in the General Assembly to the Republican agenda. He needs to go. He is a lobbyist for the AMA and for the North Carolina Medical Society. All he cares about is protecting the hospital establishment. He needs to go. So if Republicans, the leadership is worried about keeping this seat, I'm not worried about the seat. I'm worried about the ass that's sitting in that seat.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just atrocious, especially with an MD or a medical degree after your name, to supposedly be conservative and not stand up for this bill. It's a hill to die on. I mean, this is insane. And they might also just say, Sloan, well, it's just social discussion of social issues with the child, and they want to wear dresses and that's okay, and they're just going to talk about it. No, this is specifically on the UNC referral form saying gender affirming care, and those are key words. That's a specific pathway that means if the kid decides in air quotes, was told that they now feel like the opposite sex, that you have to affirm that. You have to go along with that. You have to tell them that that's totally fine. They can choose whatever they want. It's not some type of open conversation therapy. It's a highway that people get on that leads to along a progressive ideology where you can be whatever sex you want. And if you dare to even ask an open-ended question as to if that's beneficial for the child, you are labeled transphobic and shouted down.
As a
and
parent,
you're putting these kids on that highway, which leads to medical and surgical transition.
Study after study has shown that. In fact, I cited 2 studies in my most recent article, and even from the far left American Pediatric Association, and the studies have shown that young children who are socially transitioned, what Nancy just talked about, they are, when you look at them 5 years down the road, they are going to be transgender. Well, I think like 95% in both of these studies, actually. That means you have a customer for life. So you get a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old in there, they're going to be transgender at age 7. You got them on meds in another 5 years. That's what they're doing. It's money, 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 and evil, diabolical, sinful shit.
Yep. Couldn't agree more.
Anyway, I don't have an opinion on this, so.
We're very, very vanilla today, Sloan.
Yeah, I'm non-committal. Oh, by the way, Nancy and I are going to be on Fox and Friends early, like 4:20-ish tomorrow.
It's going to be back to residency days. Getting up to 3:30 in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then I will be on a couple other shows. I'll throw it up on Twitter, but and the what we're trying to do is raise awareness about this. I mean, the entire world basically, it seems, is on fire over the fact that we've got 3 freaking medical schools. Everywhere, everybody said, oh, they're not trans. They just did a story in the AP a week ago. They're not transing toddlers. That's bogus. And the hell they're not. So we got to shut this down. So you had a better day
Mhm.
than I had. So tell us what you did today, Nancy.
Well, today was the hearing for the motion to dismiss the motion presented by the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, run under Superintendent Truitt, against the lawsuit brought by a teacher who taught at the summer program, the Governor's School for Gifted and Talented High Schoolers, a residential program. He was fired unjustly. His case was taken up by Alliance Defending Freedom, which is highly selective in terms of their cases. They're the group that represented the cake baker out west when people were demanding, customers were demanding he bake a cake for a belief that he didn't believe in. So they're a pretty powerful group, highly selective in their cases. They took on Dr. Phillips's case on 5 counts, that he had his free speech rights violated, that he was discriminated against based on race, based on religious grounds, based on multiple characteristics, and finally something called the Fruits and Labor Clause, which basically means they disrupted his ability to be employed or something like that, specific to North Carolina law. So the NCDPI moved to dismiss all counts on that case, and they were not entirely successful. So it's very good. So today I went to see that motion. It was pretty straightforward. I thought the ADF did an excellent job presenting their rebuttal to the dismissal. The judge seemed very interested. It's a liberal judge. His name is Rosier. He was appointed by Cooper. So especially hard in Wake County with, very liberal court system. But the judge felt that there was a case for discrimination based on race and discrimination based on multiple characteristics. So those 2 counts survived and will go forward. He is still not sure about the free speech and he wants to study that further. So he did not rule on that. Hopefully that'll come out in the next week or so if that count is allowed to go forward. So I think overall that's very good news. Dr. Phillips definitely has a case. It was interesting because you should all go to the ADF website and read the filing. It's very good. It's very enlightening. A lot of details. You see that this teacher who was fired essentially after he gave an optional lecture on free speech, ironically, and a mob attended, a woke mob attended, and
Kind of like the one that was at the General Assembly today.
Yeah, tried to heckle him, cornered him, and then turned around and said he was the one who was doing the abuse, which is kind of funny since it's an optional lecture. Why wouldn't they simply walk out as opposed to take the abuse? But he was fired, within 24 hours of that event. They've been unable to get public records about his firing. There's no documentation, nothing. So I highly recommend you read the lawsuit, and you'll find that he's also fighting for the students because he reveals in that lawsuit testimony that they're deciding to accept students based on their political views and based on their race, amongst other things that are happening at that indoctrination center called Governor's School. So it was funny because when the NCDPI lawyers were referring to the original filing, they kept calling it lengthy, like it was supposed to be some snide comment. But I was sitting there saying, yeah, exactly. That's how many problems you have. That's how much stuff he had to put up with and how much evidence he has and testimony that this has been a ridiculous place for a teacher to teach just common sense central views, not even I would consider right views, but books written by liberals such as Jonathan Haidt, for example, Coddling of the American Mind, that type of thing, basic constitutional ideologies like free speech, that type of thing. Just too upsetting, apparently, for high school students to handle, and other teachers as well. Other teachers, including the one just named Teacher of the Year, was named as having harassed Dr. Phillips for not having enough diversity on his syllabus list in terms of authors. Heaven forbid you determine your syllabus based on the content rather than what the author might look like. But yeah, so it's a very interesting read. The NCDPI seemed to think it was too lengthy. I found that kind of a childish dig.
Can't read, maybe, I don't know.
I don't know.
Might be educated in North Carolina public schools
Yeah.
right about
When
now.
the ADF lawyers got up and argued their portion of, why it shouldn't be dismissed, they did a fantastic job. The judge seemed very engaged, seemed very interested, asked appropriate questions. And I thought the whole thing was very straightforward, and I'm very happy that it's proceeding on at least those 2, potentially 3 counts. Yeah.
So, Catherine Truitt is a gaffe machine. I mean, she weighed in on this lawsuit 2 weeks after it was filed, and she does what every good foot soldier in the Marxist, progressive Joe Biden revolution would do. And she smeared the man's character as a racist, because, as you know, any white Christian conservative male who objects to CRT as he has and says there's only 2 genders is always called a racist. So she came out and said he was fired for cause. And I think we should fire Catherine Truitt for cause.
Yeah, I haven't been able, first of all, I've talked to Dr. Phillips from the very beginning. His story has remained consistent over and over and over again. No matter when I talk to him, no matter who else I talk with, it's the same story over and over. Details are not changing. I've also been online, and he teaches at a couple of different institutions, and none of the rate my professor subjective comments, it's kind of like the Yelp for teachers, say anything about him being a racist. And in this day and age, if there's any evidence,
That's right,
or anyone interpreted anything of him,
they would take their phone out, they would be recording, they would have said something, the news crews would be down here. So
it would be all over.
The only
And
person
nothing.
the only person that has called this man a racist has been Catherine Truitt.
Right.
That is it. And I know, guys, it seems like I'm on a tear, and I want Timothy Reeder gone, and I want Truitt gone. But I'll tell you something. Let me just level with you about something. I'm an adult. I love drag shows. I love trans actually helping me with my makeup. I love these things. But the one thing I despise, 2 things I despise: trans Republicans, and I don't like them aiming this treatment at 18 and younger.
Right.
Because I feel like, and I'm not alone, that it's extinguishing the gay community. You take an effeminate boy, maybe at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and you get them on this road and say, hey, you're not okay as a boy, being effeminate or maybe gay. We got to change you into a girl. And so my point to you is, I was joking about the trans Republican. I mean, that was a joke, but in all honesty, this whole movement, it seeks to wipe out gay people and women. It's very serious here, guys. We're very passionate. Nancy, you as a doctor, me as a journalist and an activist, this is very serious here.
Yeah, it scares me as a doctor. And me, Sloan, like I'll be open-minded about things as a doctor. You want to keep all options open and on the table. I don't like to close off ideas and that type of thing.
Yeah.
I'm a free speech absolutist personally.
You are.
But when you start going after kids, and I saw it happen personally in my own family, when you start targeting young children for your personal ideologies and use them like this, that's bad enough. That's terrible. But what's even worse is promising people that you will stand up for their children, and then you refuse to, and then you don't do it, and you lie about that. And I cannot stand that. Either say you're going to stand up for the children and do it, or get out of the way, or just be, just go to the other side, or however you want to phrase the other side. But right. To get up there and to run and to say you're going to stand up for these common sense things, especially when it comes to kids, and that's the very basic minimum thing I feel like we can do, as moderates, as to the right, or whatever, common sense people out there. And you can't even do that, and you're lying about it, or misleading people into thinking you will do it, and then you don't go through with it, for whatever excuse you have. I mean, the buck stops there, because I was one of those parents who saw my kids being targeted at a very young age with pretty obscene ideologies, and it is not fun to experience, and it's gone way too far. And I would stand up for any patient. I would put myself in trouble if I had to. If I were still working, I'd probably be fired. I make the joke all the time that it's a good thing I'm not in practice at one of these universities, because I would have been fired long ago, because I would have stood up and said, this is nonsense.
Yeah. And I want to let you in on a little secret here, Nancy. I don't think you're going to be getting a job at UNC or
No.
ECU anytime
Yeah.
soon.
And I don't really want one, because
Okay,
like I said, I'd last a week. I'd go to the first rounds and get up and walk out.
Oh yeah, a middle finger up and beat it. Yeah, I know. I mean, I don't think I'm going to be able to get a job in corporate America either. So guys, this is it. You're stuck with us. We don't have anything else to do. But in all seriousness, this is Republicans are the party that can nobody can save us but ourselves. That's why we need to talk to our neighbors about this. But it's the only party that right now, because look, we only had, we got the ballot box, right? We got the jury box. And so between this and lawsuits, we're going to be free. So I'm going to end with this. We're watching two bills. Okay. It is HB 673. I think that one's going to go bye-bye night-night. But SB 579, that's going to be it just prevents obscenity, and again, targeting children. Everything we're talking about is targeting children. The next one, is, HB 808, which is a hot pile of stinking garbage, that I hope that they change on the Senate side.
They massacred it on the House side, that's for sure.
Yeah. We do have a supermajority in the Senate. So we've got, now we may say, Sloan, well, what can we do? Burn up the damn phones. It works. Call respectfully, of course. We don't want to be doing the left stuff. Call your rep. Call your senator, call your rep and follow up. Call them twice a day. Look at ncleg.gov, okay? And then go and find out when the bills are, etc. Watch my Twitter. Yeah, I cuss. But I'll get out these bills and try to keep you guys informed. But get involved. And by the way, bug the hell out of your neighbor to get them involved. You have got to light them up. The Senate, it's now or never.
Yeah.
We've got it out of the House. Great. Don't let them off the hook.
Yeah, you have to have these discussions, and they have to see it for their own eyes. Print the bill out. Print the news article out. Show it to your neighbor. When Sloan's graphic was starting to go viral about the ages of these kids at these universities being transed, and I showed it to my husband, and he's a physician. He didn't even believe it, and he knows what work I do. I mean, it's hard for people to believe. They don't want to believe it. So you have to show them the evidence. You have to show them the articles. Sloan's article, Substack article about that tweet that goes into the details has the public documents that show that they are being referred at that age for gender affirming care. So show it to your neighbor, print it out, talk about it, let people know. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a funny story. My husband's in New York now, and his boss is from Connecticut. And he works up there a lot. And the boss, who's from Connecticut, came and said, oh my God, look at this. And my husband's like, the tweet. We showed him. Yeah, that's my wife. He goes, oh my God. He goes, does she normally lie like this? He's like, no, dude, that's true.
It's
and
real.
The dude is from Connecticut. They're around people from New York, and they all said, my God, I'm glad we're raising our families here.
Wow.
Come on, people. Come on, Senate. Come on, Jim Perry, who I'm very impressed with, Senator Jim Perry, on this SB 579 obscenity bill. Come on with it. We got to do this. So anyway, good chat. We got a lot more to go. I think we're going to be on here on Thursday, Nancy. So it's going to be a lot of TD. Yeah, we're gonna have to. Thursday we'll be back because we've got to tell you what all the bills have done, and we're going to tell you that our Republicans are detransitioning.
Hopefully.
Yeah, into rock ribbed conservatives.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, but you will call them and you'll make it happen. So,
Mhm.
all right, guys, have a wonderful evening. And Thursday night, be here either 7 or 8. We'll get that posted. All right. Okay, cut. Good.
That was good, Sloan.
Thank you. All right, I'm gonna do the fancy graphics, and then my son guy's gone again, and my son has practice. Yeah. All right. Who's asking me about the Skype?
It's the Mia woman wanted a test before.
Oh yeah, did you get yours?
I haven't. Yeah, I got a tweet or a text. I mean,
Okay.
am I available for a quick FaceTime test before 9:30 p.m.? I just to make sure, I guess my FaceTime's working.
Okay. All right, cool. All right. Well, I'm gonna bounce and do all these edits. So
okay.
All right.
Amazing stuff.
Talk to you in a few hours.
Yep, right.